Brandon Ingram, who I think both of us are unexpectedly pro Brandon Ingram. Not a place I've been often the last 6 years. I've been more kind of not on the Brandon Ingram side. More of the I'm glad somebody else is overvaluing him. I'm glad he's not on my team. I've been on that side. I don't value what he does as much as others do. So I don't think he's a winning player. I come back to all I care when I evaluate guys are you a winning player? With him, it's like, what position is he? He's all offense. Can he make guys better? Is he like, do you need like a shot blocker next to him? What is he? And he really hasn't been successful from a winning standpoint. But he's been awesome this season. And he's been awesome in the playoffs. And he's going against a team that has really, really, really elite defensive wings. And it doesn't matter. He's scoring on them. He's going against a team that has a shot blocker. He's going in the paint and challenging that guy. So you texted me and you called me about this. And we were thinking, are there just guys that you're never going to be settled? This is your question. Are there guys you're just never going to be 100% one way or the other? It's always going to be this amorphous flip-flop. So we're calling them permanent flip-flop guys. Is Ingram a permanent flip-flop guy for you?
Yeah, because right now it feels really good. And he was great again. I mean, by traditional stats, although he didn't shoot it great. He's like 36% from three. Been terrific the previous 2 years, 32% this year. But, you know, he's 24, 6, and 6. The playmaking's always been there. And even going back to Duke, like it's kind of like a bigger Shamet face, Derek Whitebody theory, where you see, we're so visual that you look at Ingram and you go, well, there's no way this guy has some of that fuck you in his game. But it's like, he actually does. Even going back to Duke, one of the things that I loved about him is he drove to the rim and took contact and was like, I'll keep doing it. And there have been times where maybe we pushed back on the Ingram part of it because there was a flirtation there for a little while, especially it was on the Lakers. Like, who would you rather have down the road, Tatum and Ingram? And for the longest time, I was like, come on. And then Ingram, when he got to the Pelicans, you're like, whoa, look at these numbers that he's putting up.
Made the All-Star team.
Right. But then they were still losing a lot of games. So, it's tough because there are players who I do think put up big numbers on bad teams who I'm like, I like that guy. And there are other guys that put up big numbers on bad teams. And I go, that guy, 5 other people could be doing what he's doing, if not more. So with Ingram, seeing probably the ceiling of some of his offensive skills, that drive and then pass to a trailer tonight, like some of the shit that he does, you'll just be reminded going, God, when this guy's right, it's a lot of fun. But I'd also be willing to admit that there'll probably be a stretch that I don't love it all the time. So I'm never quite sure where I'm at. I think the best analogy for this is outside of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the NFL, that next 10 to 15, however strongly you feel one way or the other, just give it a week because you're going to be right either way.
I'm trying to think who's the perfect quarterback for that analogy.
Kirk Cousins?
Well, Ingram, since he showed up in New Orleans, he's 23, 6 and 5, 46% field goal and 37% 3-point. And this is pretty consistent. Like you look at his basketball reference, it's kind of who he is. And he might actually have a chance. Maybe he could be a 27-point guy next year. Who knows? Maybe he'll make a leap coming off these playoffs. But yeah, I'm never going to be 100%.
Yes. Yeah.
But as a permanent flip-flop guy, I think he's one of my favorites. I think Trae's another one. I think we did a lot of apologizing. You've apparently apologized to David Griffin twice on the podcast. I've apologized once. Last year, we did a lot of apologizing for Trey Young because we were pretty adamant that what this guy does, it's not winning player stuff. Then the playoffs, all of a sudden they started winning games. Now he's reverted back to the Trey Young you and I weren't fans of before last year's playoffs. So I feel like I'm starting to flip the other way again on him.
Yeah, I'll just be straight with everybody. Even when I was like, man, I'm so impressed with this guy. Deep down, there was still something in the back of my head going, don't give in. Don't give in. Don't give in to these people.
Fight it. Fight it for longer.
Because you know how you really feel. And the thing that I give Trae a ton of credit for was in that playoff series against the Sixers, he was the least afraid. And that's something that I love in players. All right? Like, what's your attitude? Right. And he was the least afraid. And you're like, if I'm talking to myself, my own little inner dialogue here at the couch, I'm going, no, these are the things you like. So you have to like this now. And then
you were like, but I don't like 29 footers with 18 seconds left on the shot clock, down 8 with 3 minutes left.
No. And
you're not a fan of that.
No, we've done the Trae timeline a million times, but I think this year's really alarming. I think it's really alarming that what if last year was kind of fluky? where it was great that his attitude was out there on fire, a disastrous Sixers situation, a Knicks team that stunk, really, that was a complete overachiever, made the playoffs, and then you watch that series play out, and you're like, how is this? This isn't even close. And then, they got even, and then he even got hurt. He's been terrible against Miami. I know he hit the game winner in game 3. I know he hit his knee today too, but
he's actually been like legitimately terrible for somebody I voted for third team All-NBA.
I voted for him too, but then again, you're like, wait, this guy's fighting with this team. It's a deep, good basketball team. And I'm telling you, there are still little hints thrown in different broadcasts where even Vince Carter, one of the home broadcasts, was like, one of the things one of the things Trae needs to do. And you're like, yeah, I know exactly what he needs to do. And you can absolutely destroy him by getting him into all the defensive actions. So for all the love of like what Trae could be and all the absurd numbers, him being owned by Miami in this, and maybe, he fell off again today because of the knee thing, but he stayed in the game. But if he didn't get the free throws he fucking gets, man, he had one free throw attempt today. I mean, he's officiated like he's Jordan 15 years in. And I'll admit, yeah, like I'm kind of like leaning back towards all the things I had an issue with, going, you can't always do it all on your own. The 30 points are awesome, but you can't always do it all on your own. And then when you're such a liability defensively, it has me asking the questions I was asking about before the playoff. Like, as I reassess everything, I'm going, can you really have this guy be like the number one dude for a team that can be a real threat in the playoffs? Because that's a good basketball team that's deep. And I know the Collins part of it, and now with Capella. I'm sorry, Miami's good. This isn't some 65-win juggernaut. All right.
Yeah, Gabe Vincent played like 30 minutes today.
So
I'm with you. I think the thing that's frustrating me about Trae, because he's been in the league now, 4 years? He just plays a certain way, and that's it, right? There's no plan B where he thinks to himself, either my shot's not falling the way it normally does, or this isn't the right team for me to do my stuff against. Like, Miami's a really hard matchup for him, especially when Bam can pop out. And you don't see him be like, all right, I'm going to show everybody this side instead. It's just, he's just the way he is, for better and worse. And this is a series where if he's going to do that, they're going to lose to Miami, and they're going to. And
yeah, I mean, this thing actually should be over now. They blew a 14-point lead in the other game that they won, and Trae wasn't good in that game, and then he hits the game winner. So then you're like, all right, now what? It's just the way things work, especially on social media, and then it's just ice Trae posts, and this guy's born for the playoffs and all this stuff. And you're like, he sucked tonight, and you're like kind of not. So it's the same as the Durant thing. Like, these are the rules, and you can't go, actually Trae, like, this is a problem. And I think it is a long-term problem. So I'm back to that again, and I'm just admitting it. So
I'm glad you came clean.
Get some.
My name is Ryan. I'm part of Permanent Flip Flop Anonymous. Listen, if we want to dig really deep and piss people off, and I don't want to piss people off, but we're just talking like two basketball fans. They beat that Knicks team in 5 last year that just turned out to be hot garbage this year. And then that Philly team where Simmons is having a meltdown as the series is going along and has not played basketball, has not played 1 minute of basketball since. And then they go in the next round, Giannis gets hurt, and then Milwaukee finally sends him packing. But I don't know how long you can dine on that 2021 Eastern Conference run. You could dine on it this year. You did it. I thought he had a really good regular season statistically. I thought he was the 6th best guard in the league. And I put him on my 3rd team All-NBA. But he's been shockingly bad in this Miami series. Shockingly bad.
He has. And you can have a bad series, but the other guys that were more willing to give a pass have probably had other moments that are peaking. And right now we're looking back on this a bit like the Portland Western Conference Finals appearance a couple years ago, where you go, that's kind of a nice run. But are you going to be that team for a while?
I had a couple more permanent flip-flop guys.
Yeah, no. Karl-Anthony Towns, go.
So I didn't have him on my list because I think I'm just flopped on him.
To all the way good?
I don't see a flip anymore. I tried a flip in December. I gave it a couple weeks. Even went down the road on a couple Celtic fan texts of what happens if we have to break up the Jays down the road. Who do we get? Towns was maybe mentioned in a couple fake trades. But the flip just didn't suit me, and I think I'm on the flop side with him. I just think that's our destiny together.
And it's always supportive or lack of support?
No lack of support. I'm just not a believer. I can't buy in. The dumb fouls, I just think that you are who you are in year 7, and he just can't help himself. And if this series goes 7, I know what's going to happen. It's going to be in Memphis. He's going to get 3 fouls about 8 minutes into the game. 2 of them are going to be absolutely stupid. And he's going to be yelling and doing his whole thing, and he's going to suck in game 7, unfortunately. That's why I'm on the flop side with him. I would love it if he surprised me because we need more good basketball players.
Yeah, because I mean the numbers he put up this year and this team now is a real threat. Like this,
he
is
was
a real
awesome
series.
in game 4. I think he was a man's man in that game.
And he was so bad in game 3 that I'll admit the doubt started happening again for me, being like, wait, do you like this guy?
So you're on the flip side.
I don't know what to do with him. And a lot of this too is remember, if we start naming you as an all NBA player, which I did with Towns, like you
Me
did.
too.
We both had him third team. Then there's a kind of expectation. It's not that you can't have bad games. Every one of these guys is going to have bad games. And it kind of gets back to the point of like how much we should appreciate LeBron. Because like his worst game is still pretty good.
You miss LeBron. I can hear it in your voice.
I do miss him a little bit. But with Towns, you know what I think it is with Towns? And it's probably unfair. Maybe this all gets back to kind of the visual part of it. When it's going bad for him, it's just so demonstrative, and he's just so upset the whole game.
It's like Cousins. It has the same kind of negative, poisonous energy that Cousins has.
Yeah, I mean, Cousins is the worst I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody mentally be fucked in a quicker amount of time than DeMarcus Cousins. It's a superpower that he has. I've never seen anything like it.
He still kind of has it.
I know he still has it, but Towns has like a it's not as bad as Cousins, but there's a pinch of it in there. So that when it's going bad, but then again, all right, game 3, he says everything he wants to say because he's basically pissed that his team didn't get him involved. I mean, you go 40-16 to close out a game, and they came back and won game 4, and he was great in game 4. I thought the Minnesota, or like a really weak team, maybe gets smashed in game 4. And I know the officiating in game 4, I don't know if we're going to talk about it or not. The fouling where Bane, Jackson, and Brooks all had like 5 fouls with I think 7 minutes to go it was ridiculous.
Do you think Bane is the second best Grizzly?
I do
too. Because that brings us to another permanent flip-flop guy who has not made the list yet, but he's in the waiting room. I'm staring at him. Jaren Jackson, who I voted first team all defense. I voted for him, I think, 3rd for defensive player of the year. The rub on him, and the reason I didn't want to vote him for defensive player of the year, was he can't stay in the fucking court because he gets in foul trouble every other game. This series, 23.8 minutes a game, 20 fouls in 4 games. He's averaging 10 and 6, shooting 39%. Hey, Jaren, the playoffs started. Stay in the fucking court. I know the refs were bad in game 4, not his fault, but he's got to figure out some sort of balance between being a dominant defensive player and actually just playing 30 minutes. Because they really, when he's out there and he's playing well, they're kind of, I don't want to say unbeatable, but they're pretty hard to play, especially when you go to round 2, round 3, if they get there. And when he's in foul trouble, they're a different team.
Yeah, this series in a weird way, like I think New Orleans coming back and tying this thing against Phoenix and us allowing ourselves to like, where do you think this one's going? Can you imagine?
Yeah.
But the Memphis, Minnesota part of this, like part of it's just me being really thrilled about Minnesota having this toughness in them that I don't know that any of us knew the answer to that question after you have. I mean, game 3 was as bad a playoff result as you can have.
It was horrible. Waz and I came on that night and we were I thought the series was over. I didn't think they would. I didn't see them coming back from it. But the lesson, as always, is, does it even matter when you blow a big lead in the NBA anymore? It's so easy to just blow a 20-point lead. Maybe we overrate it. It's not like it was in if this happened in 1993, where you're like, oh my God, how are they going to recover? Now, just play the next game. You hit some shots. It's fine.
Yeah, I think the job part of it has been a little disjointed, depending on how he's always going to get his points. He's going to get the assists. He has the ball in his hands a lot. I think he's exploitable on defense. And I think back to your Jackson point, this is a guy that makes a lot of money. I voted for all the defensive stuff as well. And there are long stretches where you're like, other than maybe an open 3 every now and then, there's not a lot there when it isn't going right. But luckily, they do have all the depth. They've abandoned the Adams part of this, which has helped them turn it around since game one.
Thank God they did it quickly.
This is an awesome series that's also tough to watch at the same time. It's weird. It's a very weird series.
I have 2 more flip-flop guys. LaMelo Ball, I've already changed my mind on 4 times. And his coach just got fired. Partly because, I don't know, LaMelo, I didn't see him play defense in the first 2 years of his career. I feel like that should matter. The team rolled over in the playing game. I feel like that has to at least a little bit take the personality of your best players. I thought Borrego did some good stuff. I know you like him. I know he's been on the podcast. Without Hayward, that team just was pretty stagnant for the most part. And I don't know if a new coach is changing we only look like a real offense when Hayward plays. And now that, Hayward is probably the most likely Laker target if they can get rid of Westbrook. I think that's like conceivable that there's a Hayward, Westbrook, one more contract, and Charlotte gets a pick back and they just try to reboot it, right? Give the money to Bridges. They don't have to go on the luxury tax. But back to LaMelo, like I didn't love how the season ended for them and for him.
The LaMelo one, I think, is a good one. Because if you go back to last year, he was 7th and 4th quarter minutes his rookie year, and you could tell Borrego just didn't trust him at all.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, he probably get fired because of this. Because most coaches probably would have just said, whatever, we picked this kid, he's going to win rookie of the year, going to have him out there. But Borrego was not afraid to still be hard on his guys. And the fact that they were competitive over the years, they haven't had a setter since Dwight. Hayward missed, I think he played 93 games the last 2 years, and that's your max guy.
Who could have predicted an only occasionally healthy
And
Hayward?
Apparently, I had it when Hayward was upset and wanted out of Boston. I've heard rumblings that he would maybe like to go somewhere else. So, he got the big money deal, and we'll see what happens there. And that's why these kinds of things, like I never rule out any of the Westbrook stuff. Unlikely. Is he somebody in demand? No, but I don't think it's impossible. Because LaMelo's so young and it's only 2 years in, but I would kind of put him in that, hey, for us to continue to be as excited about you, there's going to have to be some other parts of your game that round out a bit, because the special stuff is a lot of fun with him, and I do think he's somebody offensively that is fun to play with. I actually don't think he forces the issue on his own. And the absurdity of his career, I mean, you see how he finished the season shooting. The guy was on fire. And it's unbelievable to me that he's this good of a shooter already. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the next coach. Because I think the front office there was they thought this team was going to be better. And I personally think, and maybe I'm biased because I've had Borrego on, I think he's a really good coach because I think he's a good coach. It's pretty simple. Like if I thought he sucked as a coach, I wouldn't have him on and go, hey, I love this guy who sucks.
I thought it was a weird team. Yeah. And I think I went from thinking Westbrook was untradeable to wondering if they could maybe stick him on Charlotte and get Hayward and Plumlee and throw Charlotte a 2027 first.
I'm just over assuming because the guy has a bad deal that he can't get done. Because I think you brought up a point on one of our texts too, is that maybe they do that deal and then they feel like, okay, they have this piece to move. To say $47 million expiring is really enticing to some other team. It means you're just going to be taking on contracts that they don't want.
You're throwing at least one first in there.
Right. I would never underestimate the clutch part of it, which is the same as any powerful agency. I just feel like this league has more things that happen in the gray areas that a lot of us never find out about until years later, where it's like, hey, do us a solid,
or we know as it's happening.
Right.
My last flip-flop guy, he's entered the chat. I've always been on the flip side of him, but I'm starting to get there with Mitchell. He's starting to be in there for me. I just want him to get better, and I want him to be more of a two-way player than he is. And maybe this is just who he is. But I asked Waz on Thursday night if Mitchell was just CJ McCollum with better PR. And it's worth thinking about. Their stats are pretty similar. Not sure one is better defensive than the other. I think we think that Mitchell is like in this Booker, Trae, Tatum kind of group of up-and-comers, and he's had some playoff success, but I don't like that Their guards were just doing whatever they wanted, and he doesn't seem like he's a factor at all on that end of the floor. And I think that should matter. So I'm not willing to make him a permanent flip-flop guy yet, but I have my eye on him.
Well, it hasn't been good at all, even though he's still averaging 30 for them. But I know that's not really what the segment is about. That 7-game series 2 years ago against Denver, I mean, the guy was averaging 36 a game.
It was awesome.
So I think he just needs to be with a better point guard that's going to bail him out of some of the tougher possessions. He'll force the issue. The Booker thing I've always kind of pushed back on because I just thought Mitchell was a little bit more dynamic, and the fact that Booker hadn't done anything until Chris Paul got there. But now Booker, at least the trust level with his decision making is far greater than the trust level that I have with Mitchell in some of the tougher spots. So I don't even want to do it.
Booker's a way better defensive player.
Yeah, defensively too. And I don't know where Mitchell, what happened to the pride? Is this whole thing been so disappointing that you're just going to let fucking guys dribble past you for an entire fourth quarter?
That was
gross.
It's embarrassing. Yeah, gross is a good word.